Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Shealy. Good morning. Today is Friday, April the 12th. It is a gloomy Friday morning. Thank you for joining us on this week's broadcast of Tamara for Georgia. Let's see where my trusty co-hosts are. Let's see who's here. Let's see. Oh, I think David is on time. There he is. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Tamara.
Oh, what is that frog in your throat?
Yes, I'm a bit caught something, and it's beyond whatever the pollen is, but spring cold.
David, you sound rough.
So anyway, I will just be brief this morning.
Okay, well let's talk real briefly so we can let you go and we can let you go take some. I'm sure you're dosing up on everything natural, that is.
Yeah, vitamin C, echinacea, all of that.
Awesome.
And I'm not, I can still exercise and do that, but I do want to,
You need to feel better, David. You're
yeah.
dragging. So just let's get with it. What's on your mind? What's on your mind? We're not gonna hold you long. I want you to go lay down.
Well, I think it would be nice to finish up some thoughts on the healthcare issue and make some observations about maybe a direction for people who are thinking about how to mobilize around single payer Medicare for all, and that is that the people who are advocating that, particularly the Democratic candidates for the presidential run, have emphasized the power of the private insurance and big pharmaceutical companies and distributors and their lobbying power. I think that we really need to have a conversation about the opposition that is coming from the base, from working class people.
Opposition that's coming from the base as it specific to healthcare.
The resistance to Medicare for all that people have had over the years, including all of the attempts that have been made before under Truman and then under Bill Clinton with Hillary running the show, and also the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare. It seems to me that that at the center of this resistance or reluctance to join together to mobilize behind a universal health insurance system is race. White supremacy, particularly, is the source. And in the case of Truman's attempt, it was very directly and clearly the Dixiecrats who blocked it because it would have meant integrating the healthcare system, black and white, having the same medical system.
So this, just so that you're not talking and people aren't keeping up, let's make sure we would say good morning to our other trusty, beautiful co-host, Miss Robbie L. Caban.
Hey.
That's a quiet entry. Thank you.
Good morning, Robbie.
Good morning. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So David's saying that the reason why, let me repeat it. Let me repeat what I'm hearing. So you're saying the resistance to Medicare for all, this some sort of universal health care is racial. There's a racial component that we might be equal in the access to services. Am I close?
Yeah. And I think that some of the people that I've read in these times, Natalie Schuer and a few others, have pointed out some very useful observations that the private health insurance system in this country is based really upon what the models for profit system are grew out of the property insurance, like homeowners and automobile insurance, which are really based upon a catastrophe model. In other words, if you had 4 auto accidents a year, you would be uninsurable, or the insurance company couldn't make any profit. But that model is what most people have for their health insurance, or that model, compares to what happens with health insurance. So you have a catastrophe model that doesn't fit the nature of what health insurance requires of us, which is continuous care. The other thing,
as opposed to prevention.
Yeah,
preventative, proactive, going to the dentist to avoid the root canal.
Yeah,
but that's less money for them.
Exactly. And it also costs in another way. It costs because it provides jobs. Lots and lots of jobs are available. The insurance industry in this country, up until the Affordable Care Act, had 300,000 people. Private insurance companies had 300,000 people employed in what they called compliance. And that very simply was throwing.
Okay. Did we just lose David?
I hear him.
Yeah.
If we did, I still hear him. But if we did, this has come up before in terms of compliance, regulatory agencies, oversight, and the lack of it, and how that would create a ridiculous amount of jobs. And it's necessary, and it would avoid corruption, waste, malfeasance, lawsuits, etc. So I'm glad that this is coming up. Is he?
Yeah, David, we lost David. Yeah, anytime there's like a threat of some weather issues, we just can't get our broadcast. We fall apart here. But nevertheless, I think there's so much work. When you talk about preventative care, Robbie, there is still so much opportunity in jobs with preventative care. Like, it's work to stay healthy.
Tell me about it. I was telling you
with the hurt foot.
I was at the audience. I hope will get a cute laugh out of this. I was in an open house showing this beautiful home. One of our residents in Southwest Atlanta is relocating, got a new job. Good for her. So she's selling her home. She's beautiful floors, like tile, exquisite granite, stainless steel. I'm selling her home, and oh goodness, am I frozen? Am I okay?
Keep going. Keep talking. Yeah.
Just go with it. Okay, so I'm walking through showcasing her home, pointing out the granite steel. And just without me even noticing, guess who bites it on this beautiful tile floor?
So you slip,
and of course I land, I land on my foot, fortunately. So my foot broke the fall. And long story short, I've been hobbling around for a week, and I told my sister about it, and she said, well, you always get frustrated with people. You're not patient. So the Lord is working on you. And I'm like, my sister's a sleeper. She just sits there waiting for the opportune time. Anyway, I don't know.
It's work staying healthy. It's work staying healthy. So we actually have a guest on our broadcast. Robbie, I know we're having some technical difficulties, but we're going to bring her in. Let's see where she is. Miss Troya Bishop. Hi.
Are we here? Do I need to refresh?
Hello,
I'm so sorry if
yes.
I'm causing all this problem.
I can hear you, Robbie.
Okay, cool. I apologize.
Good morning, Troya.
Hey, Troya.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's a good morning.
We're Facebook friends.
Awesome.
Yes.
So Troya is an activist.
Samara? No, let's just roll with it. So apparently you got something going on, Ms. Troya. What's going on?
Yes. Well, last week I was contacted by a family in Gwinnett County, and the mom, Miss Hudson, shared that she had received a letter from her son's high school, Shiloh High School, saying that he had a disciplinary hearing coming up. And she was like, yeah, this is weird. My kid makes good grades. He's got enough credits to graduate right now. We are trying to make plans for where people are going to stay for graduation. We've sent out invitations, what's going on. And so the letter basically was saying that he skipped class. And because in the language in the letter is, they call it AWOL, which is military language, by the way, absent without leave from class. Mm-hmm. And so he was going to have a disciplinary hearing, and she wanted me to be present, but unfortunately I had to tell her that Gwinnett County does not allow anybody to be present in those types of hearings except for an attorney. And so they would have to be notified 2 weeks prior to the meeting, and they didn't even send her enough notice so that they could get an attorney, which is also problematic. But, I told her we would definitely advocate for them and send a letter and all that kind of stuff. So we did that.
Mm-hmm. And who is the we, for folks who don't know you, who we would advocate? Is this go ahead.
Parental Empowerment Institute. We're a 501c3 community service organization, and we advocate on behalf of parents. And awesome. And that's what we do. So I did that for her, and the hearing was Monday, and the assistant principal found him guilty of AWOL and basically is skipping. So he skipped class.
Right.
And they determined that the most fitting, most appropriate punishment for him was to be expelled until August 1st, which means that he cannot graduate with his class. And that between now and the end of the school year, he should be sent to alternative school. And in Gwinnett County, they call it the GIVE program. So, of course, we were just really shocked. And so when I asked more questions about the situation, because I'm like, it's got to be something that I'm missing. So, I was asking him, well, what class did you miss? And he said, it was weight training, because I didn't need that to graduate. So, and he's like 150 pounds, little scrawny kid. So he was like, I didn't need it to graduate. So I wasn't going, but I wasn't leaving the building. I was in another teacher's classroom. People knew where I was. It's not like I was making problems. And I was like, wait a minute. So the more questions we asked, the crazier it got. And so when we asked him, did you actually leave campus? And he said he left campus once. And so because he left campus one time, it was no drugs or girls or nothing criminal involved. He just left and went home. And without checking out. And so and they said,
Troya, let's just say it. I mean, it's kind of obvious. Let's just say it, right? Because you are literally like, look, it wasn't drugs, it wasn't girls, it wasn't this. And it's sad that you even have to do that.
Yeah.
I had a senior day. We at my high school, and everybody skipped and everybody knew it. Now, granted, it was in the Bronx, but the point of the matter is, this is ridiculous. What high school is this? And you got to have an attorney? What is that? Are you allowed to say the high school?
Yeah, it's Shiloh High School. So what we actually did was we had people to, you all know Rashad Richey. He allowed us to come on his show. And even the producers at CBS was like, this is so outrageous. We really got to fact check the whole story. They literally fact checked everything before they allowed us to go on Rashad's show. So we talked about it, and we asked the listeners if they would call the high school, ask to speak to the principal, call the school board, and ask to have him reinstated. So that was our plan of action. And they stopped taking our phone calls. They turned off the switchboard at maybe like 1:00 yesterday because they were being overwhelmed with calls, which is good, but they still will not return anyone's phone call. We did speak to school board member Everson Blair, who also graduated from Shiloh High School. Mm-hmm. And so he said he's familiar with, how they operate, and that he would definitely advocate on his behalf. But the other thing that he told us that was surprising is that in order for him to be reinstated, the whole board would have to vote unanimously for him to be reinstated. Now, just to put it in context, I also do work for people who are coming home from prison. And a lot of them are still incarcerated when we start working with those families. They only have to have a majority vote for parole board for somebody to get out of prison. But with Gwinnett County School Board, they have to have a unanimous vote. That's really far-reaching.
Excessive. Yeah, the standard here sounds completely ridiculous. And the irony is, I'm assuming the young man is an African-American male.
Yes.
Okay. I probably shouldn't have assumed that, but thank you for confirming. Yes. But it's incredible that we have an at-risk demographic that we want to remain in schools educated on the proper path, and this is how we treat people. We make their parents get attorneys. They have to have a full board meeting. We suspend them for basically cutting on one day an overall good student, where you have to literally sit here and explain no girls, no drugs, no weapons, no whatever, just because of who the man is. Really, Shiloh? Really, Gwinnett County? This is a waste of our taxpayer money. This is a waste of our time. This is, y'all.
As a mother of 2 Black sons, this kind of, I know how our boys are treated. I know very well how our boys can be, I know the stereotype. I know, how they have to walk the straight and narrow, and they can't, they can't mess up. They can't do things that teenagers do. They can't be normal teenage boys. They can't. And so I know how, this saddens me. It angers me. And I'm a true activist. So, we can keep calling and calling. All right, you want to cut the switchboard off? How about we show up at the front of the school?
Yeah, and let's bombard the emails. Well, who's the principal? What's his name? Let's put his number up, his email up, and like tag them. Tag Shane Shiloh, and put the young man's name on there.
Okay. Well, the principal is Dr. Danielle Dollard, who is an African-American female, but she just really wanted to not be involved at all. So she hasn't spoken about it. She won't return emails or phone calls.
Stop right there, Troy. Rewind. I just told you I'm the mother of 2 Black sons, right? So this is an African-American principal, female principal, who is not even responding to you guys.
Right. She's allowing it to happen. And what some of the people who are familiar
with her job.
Saying,
okay. Now we want her job.
They're saying that because the assistant principal, who is a white male, older white male, because it was his decision to do it, that she's staying out of it and just kind of, washing her hands with it. But, I'm an educator by trade. So we were saying, just as an educator, you want your kids to graduate, period. And so where was the counselor? Because if this kid is saying, hey, I don't want to be in school, I don't need these extra classes, and he's not going, somebody should have said, this kid is not showing up for class, and we need to make sure we're liable. We need to know where he is. That's a safety issue. And so
and there should be a chain.
And obviously they knew where he was. Like you just said, they knew he was with another teacher. It wasn't like the kid was gone. And the one time he did leave, okay. But the other times he was with other teachers.
Well, the sad part is there should be a chain. If they were doing their job, there should be a chain of documentation regarding discipline where he was advised, because he is an adolescent.
Exactly.
And the other component is I'm positive that there are other students who did this who either didn't get caught, they're aware of it, and are not being treated equally, which, as you know, Troya, really you too, Tamara, given law, is disparate treatment.
Right.
They're about to get a lawsuit, and then all of Gwinnett County taxpayers are going to have to fund the local county attorney, to pay for something that's avoidable.
Right.
Go ahead.
The incident where he actually left campus, this one time, the whole 3 years that he's been there, when he left, it was on camera. And so, but he was the only person that was disciplined in this way for it, the only one. And so that's what we were saying. It just doesn't make sense.
No, it's actually a Title VII violation.
I guess, yeah.
It's a Title VII violation. There might be an EEOC opportunity, but then again, I'm not as sure.
I'm sure.
No, it is. Because clearly, if there were other students and he's the only African American male.
My dog is acting up. I'm sorry.
That's
not white privilege.
David, you're quiet. I know you have to go because I know you're not feeling well. Go ahead and comment on Troya's what's going on over at Shiloh High School, then we'll let you go.
Well, I just found this article that I sent out to a few people on your list, Tamara, about this young mother who put her 2 or 3 year old son had to go to the bathroom in this gas station, and she couldn't make it to this is in Augusta. She couldn't make it to the bathroom, so she shielded him and allowed him to go, I guess, in the parking lot next to her car. And some cops saw her and she has fined her and done all, and this was an young African American woman. She was pregnant herself with her own son, with her, and he had an urgent, need to go to the bathroom, and she found a corner maybe next to her car or something, and she was ticketed for that, for a big fine. I just find this, it is part of this pattern of criminalizing ordinary behavior. That is exactly what you are talking about, Tamara. That there's no room for error. There's no leeway. You can't make a mistake. Same thing I found among my neighbors in Martin Luther King Drive. They were when I lived there. They were on the they were playing a very, very high stakes game. Could not make any mistakes. If they did, they could be fired from jobs, or they could. And I don't mean mistakes. I mean just standing up for themselves, or
you can't make mistakes. You can't do anything, David. It's the school to prison pipeline. It's like they are, you can do one thing. You can get into a fight at school. I remember growing up where kids fought all the time at school, and nobody was sent to the police weren't called, and nobody was sent to jail. But today, if a kid gets into a fight or, anything, they're calling the police on them, which now these kids have criminal records for things that happen in high school. They're teenagers.
It's reminiscent of the whole super predator idea that the Clintons really, it really was heightened at that time, and people, created. They already had a narrative from slavery and Jim Crow and the fear of really Black people, Black men specifically. But when that super predator came out and the war on crime, it was almost like it was a license to take it even further. The way that Trump has created a license to, go all out. Now look at us. I mean, it's very similar, and that's why leadership is so important, and that's why people like Obama and Michelle who really walked a line and did it so well and were able to pull it off is so impressive, because it's damn hard.
Mm-hmm. Their children couldn't even be normal. If you think back on the Obama children, every damn thing they did, it was like any little thing. They were like looking for a reason to say these were not good girls. They were great kids. They were great kids.
Y'all would speak to it better than anybody, but from an outside perspective, it's living while Black. And this brings up, the whole white privilege component where people, where we don't know, we're like this. And so where people are like, oh, slavery is done. This is a social currency. This is a social currency. Yeah. We get things, we get passes, we get invited to spaces, we get opportunities for jobs, we get looked at. I can walk around a store and people, of course, it depends on how I look and what I'm wearing to a degree, but I can walk around a store and nobody following me around the store thinking I'm stealing. I can do all that.
Like I have to teach my sons, like my boys like hoodies, both of them. They've always liked hoodies. And ever since the whole Trayvon Martin thing, it was like, I don't even really want them to wear hoodies, and don't put that hoodie on outside. This past couple the spring break weekend, my son had two of his friends to come over. And the new thing now is the do-rags. Troy, I'm sure you've seen this with the boys. Yeah, all the kids are wearing the do-rags, and it's a trend and it's a little fad right now. But my sons and his two Black friends decided to walk around. We have a park 1 block away from us. So they wanted to go to the park. And of course, I'm not going to tell the kids they can't go to the park. But when I looked outside, those boys, all three of them, my son and his two friends, had these do-rags on their heads. And I'm like, Jesus, it scared me, because I knew the white people in my neighborhood was going to be looking at them strange. Like, who are these thugs in our neighborhood? Yeah. So Troy, it just comes back to you. And, this student is like, our Black boys have no room to be children. They have no room to be teen. They can't.
None at all. And then when we were talking to them, we asked them just some questions about what was happening at school on a regular basis, because we kind of got down to the bottom. The guy the principal, assistant principal, just didn't like the student. And so when we were asking him, well, what was it like, every day at school? And when he started telling us about his interactions with the principal, it sounded a whole lot more like harassment So I think we're going to have to get into that regardless. And the family really may have to file a lawsuit because it was bad and he was documenting things. But I think he just internalizes this is just an old white dude. White men don't like black people, instead of this is somebody who is an authority who really needs to respect me and should not be treating me this way. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you see him, like if you look at him, he's characteristic of what television would make you think is a quote unquote thug. He's tall. He has very, very long dreadlocks, and and he's dark skinned, you know, and this person, that look is criminalized. But as soon as he opens his mouth, and he is brilliant, he's intelligent, he's articulate. And I think that type of child is a threat because all the kids love him. The kids look up to him, and he's just a really, really good kid.
That is a damn shame, because literally people can't get to the part where he opens his mouth to see how brilliant it is because they can't get past what he looks like.
Exactly. And you know what, the criminalization of our hair, like right now, those of you that don't know, I'm from the beauty and barber industry. Black people now, we are fighting just to wear our hair in its natural state. Like they're allowing corporations to say, well, if you don't, groom your hair properly, or straighten your hair, any locks or braids.
Professionally. Professionally, yeah.
They're, the criminalization of what we look like.
And it's crazy too. That's why people get so frustrated. And I understand when you see someone appropriating, anyone, well, it doesn't matter. I'm not even going to give them a plug. Any famous person who's not Black appropriating, it's like, oh, look how cool I look. Look at my magazine. Look at my vote. Look at my ad. Look, I'm getting paid for all this. But a regular Black person can't wear braids to work because it's not professional.
Right.
So how, of course, people are going to be like, what the hell? Of course, people are going to be resentful. Of course, people are going to be upset about it. It reminds me, and I know I bring this up every time. I'm sorry, Ms. Tamara, I'll do it. I bring this up every time. Atlanta Bike Life. It drives me nuts. Atlanta Bike Life, and it specifically to the assistant or to the principal, because sometimes we as minorities are harder on other minorities than other people.
That's so true.
And I get that. My mother was like that. I understand. My mother had a fear that I think now in retrospect, that I would do all these things that she should have not done. And so she honed in on me to some degree. I had a very strong mother. She would tell me, you are not white, because I would float around the Bronx and think, oh, I thought as a child, like, look at me or whatever. And she was like, you are not white. Just because you didn't get off the boat, you are not white. And she would literally point it out. She would point out every jacked up flaw, whatever. And it literally was like, do not get confused, little girl. You need to know who you are.
And then white America has reminded you too, Robbie, that you are not white. Like, not only did your mother teach you, but then white America reinforced what she taught you.
Well, it's interesting because I've had to learn that in a hierarchy. It depends on who I'm up against. If I'm up against a white male or a white female, I lose. If I'm up against someone who's not that in that hierarchy, I have a leverage. So, and I've seen that play out throughout my life. I've been witness to that, which is why I've been witness to being with people who are dark and being like, wow, y'all all getting treated like, you know what? And because I'm with y'all, so am I. And so now I gotta, either say, well, I'm with them and take the consequences equally or sometimes harder. Cause now it's like, oh, you with them?
You're a traitor.
Yeah, well, now you really gonna get it. You know what that word is, and love. You know what that word is.
Yeah.
But to the point, it brings up Atlanta Bike Life and why City of Atlanta leadership, who is predominantly Black, Atlanta Bike Life are these group of urban young Black African American males, ridiculously talented. They ride bikes, motorcycles, ATVs, and so on. They have been maligned in the media. They look like vigilantes in the media. And some of them, they're predominantly dark urban youth. And some of them have long dreads. And if you look at these photographs, these young men are in stunt movies. They are making money. They're entrepreneurial. They have, garb clothing that has people love them. They're not at home though. Just like Jesus. Nobody loved Jesus at home. But people love them in terms of an Instagram following. And Atlanta will not provide a local designated space for these guys. And I'll tell you how crazy it is. Their motto, they have a song out, bikes up, guns down. And it's hot. it actually is a hot song. They made nonviolence sound cool. Our young kids look up to them and want to ride with them in a safe, they themselves are advocating for a park. And we, when we have predominantly African-American leadership in the city, will not allow it because of the backlash from the folks respectfully in Buckhead who are saying these are criminals. And
so Troya, let's bring it back to Troya, Robbie. So Troya, what do we do to help you? I didn't want to keep you long, and I wanted to give you as much time here as possible to share what happened over at Shiloh High School. Again, Shiloh High School.
Dr. Daniel Dollar, principal.
That's right.
Dollar, yeah. I will.
African-American woman. Say her name again, Robbie.
Dr. Daniel Dollar. I hope it's not about Dollar.
Is that the vice principal or the principal? What's the principal's name?
That's the principal, Dr. Danielle Dollar. Yeah.
Danielle Dollar. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dollard with a D.
Yes.
On the end. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I've posted some stuff, but I'll share this feed, and I'll post the Everton's name, because what he was saying is that he'll need support too, and just say, hey, you know, I have people from Gwinnett and other people who are supporting this family. And so I posted the school board, I repost that, and the school, if you still want to call a school, which we were asking people, just bombard them, because this was really wrong. So I'll post all of that information again.
What about the emails? Because if we mess up their feeds, this happened one time with the city, they can't operate. So maybe put their email up. Yeah, no, it works.
Okay. Yeah, I can post it. Definitely. Thank you for that.
I'm wondering. I'm wondering if this young man may have been targeted by this older white assistant principal for the very reasons that you suggest, that he's articulate, that he's well liked in the, you know, that he's a leader, right? And he doesn't fit this older, you know, assistant principal's image of what a youth, you know, a youth or student leader should be like. You know, which is what do you call it? Obedient, you know, somebody who toes the line. And it may very well be that there is a mixture there of a threat to his authority with his own, internal, I don't like to call them unconscious, you know, but internal biases, you know, that are, you know, based on, on his lack of self-awareness.
Right.
You know, I don't want to get too much into his psychology, but you know, he's already in a position where he's not the principal. You know, he's the vice principal. He's the assistant.
Right. True.
You know, David, that's good right there, David. Like there could be some jealousy. There's some.
Yeah, there's some sense that he does not have the full authority, and I think maybe this principal, Dr. Dollard, may realize that, you know, and that's why she's staying out of it. I don't know. I'm just, you know, I'm speculating.
Which would still be inappropriate, though, because ultimately she's accepted the leadership position of principal, and she's, you know, in essence, her constituency are her students and parents.
Right.
You know, and if this, gentleman is targeting him, you know, and that's a great observation, David. Maybe he feels he's been passed up out of race. I hear that all the time, all the time. And probably because I, you know, look right.
Let me just say a few things historically. One of the things that really turned on, you know, my light bulb, you know, about race, is the whole issue of Black English. You know, whatever you want to call it, you know, Ebonics or you know, or all these. But in the 60s, this became a really big issue. You know, that Black kids don't know how to talk, right? And it wasn't just the school authorities. This in New York City, you know, was a big deal. And it wasn't just the school authorities. It was this whole issue about whether Black people talk wrong, you know, and there were linguists all over. There were, you know, high-powered professors of linguistics at the University of Pennsylvania and other places that were saying there is no right or wrong when it comes to language.
Right.
You know, this is a cultural developed, way of speaking English. It is a dialect, just as there are other dialects of English. And the standard network English that you hear on the on the radio and on television is one form of that. But even Black educators were threatening and punishing kids for speaking in dialect, rather than recognizing that these are two forms of English.
And we have our own culture, David.
Yes.
Black and brown people, and Robbie can attest, we have our own cultures. We have our own way of communicating with each other. And America fed us, they didn't allow us to read and write. So we had a broken English, broken dialect from the very beginning. Exactly. And we have our vocabulary may be limited. The word usage may be limited. No. I know that to be true. However, do not equate that with ignorance. We are not an ignorant group of people. I was actually I was in a store, and there was an older Black woman in the store, and I could tell she was probably from the old South, and she was really trying to conduct this transaction, and her English to the white man would have been like, she would have been like a slave. Her English was that broken. Mm-hmm. And I realized that they were going to treat her differently because I couldn't get involved in the transaction. There was a credit card involved. I didn't know what was going on, so I stayed out of it. But I did pay attention to the way the white person interacted with me versus the way they interacted with her.
Yeah. Well, that it becomes another issue. I would object to calling it broken English or anything like that. This is really the language that came out of slavery was mixed with Africanisms, with West African dialect, and it filtered into the standard English, the English of the slave masters. Was influenced by this whole, because in the case of the antebellum South, the slave masters and the overseers had to communicate with those folks, and so it became a whole contested area of discussion. Anyway, I'm getting way off of the subject of the.
It's all in the gaze too, the gaze of the viewer, because I remember as a kid, I had people call my home, and they were Caucasian people, and they would say, "I think I spoke to your maid." Well, they spoke to my grandmother.
Yeah.
Because my grandmother spoke broken English. But to a degree, in the case of African Americans, at least from my perspective, it's an even more poignant because my grandmother is an immigrant. I recognize that. I was born here, but people of African descent, who are African Americans, to some degree have more claim and have, in my view, have an ability to hold America, our country, more accountable due to what has occurred. And actually, in the last show, we were going to kind of bring this up, Tamara, about, the whole chattel slavery. And to some degree, when I listen to Troya and this example, it almost makes me think that people still do not really understand what chattel slavery in the United States was. Because even on this show, remember last week when we talked about it, David and Alberto, and we didn't have time to get into it, equated it to forced labor, coerced labor. And remember, there was this Harriet Tubman tribute where she describes her life, where she's a 12-year-old young child in a field, and a white slave owner said to her, "Stop that man," and she didn't stop the man, and because she didn't, he bludgeoned her in the head. This is her story. He bludgeoned her, left her in the field, and she had brain trauma, and he wouldn't allow her to be treated. And that's created the course of her life for the Underground Railroad. And to equate slavery when people were literally, he did not have to treat her because he owned her. He owned her. In U.S. American chattel slavery, that is not just coerced labor. And to equate it as such, in my opinion, is irresponsible. And I mean that in a very respectful way to everyone. That's just my 2-cent opinion, that we all have. And when I listen to these stories, I'm like, we never got history right. And this is the consequence. This young man, Everton, who goes to Gwinnett County High School in
Everton is the
Shiloh.
Everton. Listen. Everton is the school board. He's a school board member.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Student,
Everton
that's
is
not the
not
student's name.
What's the student's name?
Donovan Hudson.
Donovan. Look at what is happening to Donovan because we didn't get it right. As people said, this is all carrying over.
But it's intentional. It's really intentional. I had an interview earlier this week with Andy Perioni from Channel 11 News about education in Georgia. And basically what happens consistently is that history is changed and altered so that people have these ideas about what history is, and they understand American ideals and the American dream. They have no clue about American history, real American history. Most people have no idea. Most, like the story that she told about Harriet Tubman, that's one of her truths and that she shared, but most people have no idea about that kind of thing. And so, yeah, you can go ahead, David.
Well, I want to say also that we need to see the other side of the coin, which is that Gwinnett is going through a serious demographic transition, right? Mm-hmm. And the Black people that have been moving in, as well as Latinx people who are moving in, are people who are becoming homeowners. They have regular, they have permanent jobs. They are, and they're not taking this crap, anymore. And so
say that, David. We're not taking this crap. Say that again. Troy, we're going to give you about 3 more minutes because I want you to kind of wrap it up. Egberto is in the house. He's going to give us a national political update, but I wanted to definitely give you an opportunity to share the story of Donovan Hudson and what's happened at Shiloh High School and hold these people accountable. And whatever we can do as a broadcast, as a group of activists ourselves, Troya.
Thank you.
Put the email up. We can start a petition and add the email, and everybody that signs it, they'll get an email about it. It will shut down their switchboard.
Wow, that would be great. There it is. I didn't even think about that. That would be really good. So just to recap for people who, because I see you have a lot of new viewers who joined in, and I just want to recap that Donovan Hudson was a senior planning his graduation in 28 days and got a discipline referral for skipping one class. And his assistant principal thought the best thing for him was to go to alternative school to be expelled till August 1st. So he's not allowed to graduate with his class. So we're asking everybody to sign the petition that we're going to put up, to email the school, call the school board members, and just flood them with support for Donovan Hudson and his family. And I will post the links to the original story so you can hear it directly from him and his family. And I'll share the rest of the information as well on the links below the video.
Keep us posted, Troya. Anything we can do to support you in this, we're all in.
Yeah. Thank you for your work, Troya. Thank you for all your work.
Welcome. Thank you as well. Y'all have a good one.
You too.
Power to people.
Amen, David. Amen. Amen.
David's feeling better.
I know. I think you need a dose of us. I
don't think he wants to leave.
Well, I just want to finish my stuff on the health.
I only tease people I like, David.
Yeah.
Egberto, welcome to the broadcast. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Tamara. Good morning, Ravi. Good morning, David. It was great listening to that show. I kind of got in 15 minutes late, but I enjoyed listening to that story about the young man who was not allowed or is not going to allow to graduate with his class. I really think that is something folks should get onto. It is sad. It is sad that there is nobody there to force that principal to do her job.
Trust me, Egberto. I'm waiting for that. Like, if we got to go stand in front of that school every day, we got to shut it down with a petition, like Robbie said. Oh yeah, we're gonna hold that sister. You're gonna be accountable to this child.
It is hard to believe missing one class, one day of one class, and he goes to alternative school. That is a talk about us getting harsher sentences, harsher discipline than anybody else ever, especially that close to graduation. They're trying to put an impact on, and that can affect his entire career, meaning even in college. What's what they don't tell you. Where you make that entry point into life, when they do that, it has a propagating effect on it. But anyhow, how's everybody doing today?
It goes to your point too, Egberto, every time you talk about unity, right? So
yes.
In essence, the principal, Daniela Dollar, against, she's acting as a gatekeeper. If she did not cooperate, right, if we were unified, they could not execute this, damaging, really white supremacist plan.
Well,
so,
keep in mind also, Robbie, that they are, I think that they're trying to send a message to the students, right? I mean, they're targeting a kid, a young man who fits certain of their stereotypes, but also is a leader,
right.
in the student body, in the student community, and they are targeting him to send a message that you cannot make your own decisions. You can't.
That's true.
So I really think that it is political in a much more profound sense than simply that he was. He decided that he wasn't going to go to this class and he was going to go to another class, which seems to me to be the sin that he decided, right? Without getting permission.
Like, who are you to decide?
Yeah. So that I think is something that makes this more significant than just simply a disciplinary matter, or the ordinary pattern of criminalization of ordinary behavior. But anyway, I think we ought to keep that in mind.
That's an interesting perspective, David. Very, very good point. But I wanted to talk today about something that's sort of percolating, and it is amazing. It's about Ilhan Omar. Once again, she gets into trouble for saying something that she should not get into trouble for. And all she said is she called terrorists those people or whatever. And for that, everybody is creating, both the Democrats and Fox News driven entities are making it some sort of an issue that they now want her to apologize for. Interestingly, I wrote a blog about it and placed it on Daily Kos. And I thought I would have gotten a great reception there for her. You would not imagine how many people are speaking about just being tired of her and the comments that she made. What was found out is that George Bush, the bastion of fighting terrorists, said a similar statement just like she did, and nobody ever thought it was a statement that was wrong, that disparaged the 3,000 people that died in these attacks or anything like that, proving that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party alike have the same issue. When things happen, when it corresponds to Muslims, when things happen when it corresponds to people of color, when things happen on all these particular issues, what you find is the response is it's neither proportional nor is the response what you would expect it to be. So that is something that we all have to fight. And when I say we all have to fight, I mean we have to point out to all sectors that, hey, we want the same treatment that everybody else gets in the body politic.
Well, this is parallel. The bottom line, right, is this is, again, she showed out just like the other, well, in people's perspective, she won. And so now it's like, who do you think you are? And we're angry about it. And we're going to hold you to the letter on every single thing, because really we have an underlying anger. And this is a passive aggressive pattern. It's similar to this young man who's a leader. It's similar to her. It's this, who do you think you are?
I
you
love
are
that.
Stepping out of a role that has been assigned to you, and now we're going to come after you whenever we can.
Let me interject something here, because this happened during the Obama administration as well. And there was a woman named Shirley Sherrod, who was one of the leaders of the Black farmers movement that sued the government and won a settlement of I think $9 billion for
good for her.
Decades of discrimination by the Farm Bureau against Black farmers, and she was very active in that, And Breitbart News, when Breitbart was still alive, this was, I think, around 2010, he took a video of her talking about social justice, in which she said, you know, I used to think that that all white people were bad. I hated them, and then she said the next part of her talk, of her speech, was to say, but I have grown out of that. And he took the clip. He literally took that clip where she said, I hated white people and all of this other stuff. And he posted it. He sent it all around. The Obama administration fired her.
Oh, wow.
Okay. The NAACP would not back her. Okay. So this is something in which the internalized, you know, whatever you want to call it, internalized oppression, just jumped to the conclusion from that this right wing, you know, hallucinatory, you know, website was more reliable than he was. All right, and it also shows the power of the video, you know, to do that. But they did not even make that investigation. So, you know, we have to keep in mind that that we have not only, you know, these folks who are attacking us from without, but for exactly what you're saying, Egberto.
Right, David, I tell you what, I learned a lot from that story that you just recalled. That was during my CNN I report days, and I was one of those who actually went on CNN and spoke out against Shirley Sherrod. And when we found out a couple of weeks, I think it was actually a week or so later, I went to the producers at CNN and asked them to get me on again so that I could apologize on air for that. Because as it turns out, it was a well orchestrated. This is a bit different than the issue with Ilhan Omar, because this one was an orchestrated edit. The one with Ilhan Omar is just saying anything that comes out of her mouth, they make it suspect, which is a bit different than that particular one. That was where I thought we have a responsibility. You, David, Robbie, Tamara, we have a responsibility that when we are out there putting things out that affect people, we better make darn sure that we know what we're doing, because like I said, that was one of the biggest blunders that personally that I had. And and just with you remembering that story, David, tells me that the impact that had on so many people nationally.
But you know, we're all human and we're going to make mistakes, and all we can do is be careful, due diligence, and apologize. What I do love, Egberto, and everyone, that you're bringing up is the equitable aspect of the Democrats and the Republicans both doing this to her, but everyone is allowing this to happen. And that is something that, Tamara, you know, you are the
poster child here in Georgia.
Well, let me also say that this issue of the $9 billion of, let's call it what it is, reparations to Black farmers who were run out of agriculture, was up before the Senate. I mean, the timing of it was not accidental, and they were voting on the appropriations that had been ordered by the court, years before it was coming before the Senate. So that, I think, is really an important context for understanding what she was, why she was targeted, at the moment that she was. So that's a really interesting story, Egberto, and
this
sure
one
is. Go ahead, Arabi.
No, I'm going to be quick. This one with Elon, because we've got 5 minutes and I want to hear what you have to say, is interesting because the Democrats, in essence, she gave them value to some degree. But now, because and it's no secret, Democrats are going after the Black vote, and the Black vote can be substantially larger because there's a lot of people who do not vote, and we can still grow. And so it's fascinating that they're saying, she said those people, and so now they're targeting like, well, which one is a bigger pool that we can gain from her?
Well, interestingly, they know one important thing, and there's a little dirty secret, okay? And the dirty secrets, when they don't mind harming Ilhan Omar, because in the black community, many folks look at Ilhan Omar as not a black person. Okay, and I went through the same issues as well with the accent, with whatever. You can look the part, but because you are not native, what happens many times is even within the I've had people on my show from New Orleans or whatever, and they talk about those folks coming in from Jamaica or from Panama or from whatever, and what they've done is they've created that friction, that compartmentalization that allows them that hierarchy that allows them to do that. So what we have. Go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
So I think those are reflections of the underlying white supremacy and the fact that working class whites have been put into this position where the only choice they have is to act as deputies for the ruling elite. In other words, stooges for the ruling elite. And
that is so well put. That is so well put.
And they're they have two sets of interests that conflict with each other, and that is really and nobody is talking about their working class interests, their interests as workers. That's one of what I've been trying to say for the last two weeks about the is that if we had a risk pool that included everybody. That would be a tremendous act of solidarity, and that's one of the reasons why it's so resisted by the ruling elite and by the people who are trying to mobilize white folks into white nationalism. Whether it's the refined kind of the old Republican Party or this new unrestrained type that Trump and Stephen Miller are appealing for. So
we have about 3 minutes. We have about 3 minutes left in the broadcast. I want to give Egberto a moment to wrap it all up for us, because I know our conversations, there's never enough time.
and the show, this show just keeps getting better and better. Let me just say one thing. I think it is incumbent on us going forward to not, first of all, we have a new crop of progressives that have entered the Democratic Party, and they are really the Democratic Party is scared of these new entries, and the reason why is they're affecting the status quo. So that is reason why they're after Ilhan Omar. They're after AOC. They're also after Rashida, and they're also after the young woman in Massachusetts, Ayanna Presley. Yeah, it is our job going forward to make sure that we have those people's backs, because the mainstream media, along with the who have become the wards of the Democratic Party, the mainstream media, they are some of the biggest culprits attacking them. So we have to be the ones on their side so that message can actually get out there. And with that, I acquiesce to your show.
Thank you, Egberto, for always coming on every Friday. You can always find Egberto at politicsdoneright.com. He does a broadcast every single day right here on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitter, Instagram. That man is every damn where.
And on don't forget KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston, Texas.
This is the man, y'all. So follow Egberto Willies at Politics Done Right. Egberto, thank you for joining us every Friday. We totally appreciate you, sir.
Thank you for having me. You guys have a wonderful rest of your week, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. This was a great broadcast. We are approaching the last minute of the hour. Robbie Caban, you want to take it on home today?
No, I think it was great. David, it's nice to have you back. We have missed you. I always love listening to Egberto. He's spot on about helping protect those women. And hopefully, and really, I guess the only thing I want to mention is the real crust of the matter, the clarity, to your point, David, and your point, Tamara, and the Dems in Buckhead this week, I guess, like a CEO bought Buckhead Palace for what was 5 million or something on a lake. And his folks that earn like at the bottom level for customer service are like 24,000 a year. And so to your point, David, you know, interests, working people, the most important color here is green.
Well, the other thing is that that what Egberto is saying, I think, about the Democratic Party is that there's a real struggle going on in the Democratic Party about, you know, whose interests are gonna dominate. Is it the corporate interests of big business, or is it the people who are who are trying to represent working class people? But the issue that most of the progressives, I think, are missing is how they can address white working class people so that that those folks have at least an invitation to join in the struggle. I mean,
and that becomes another conversation, David.
Yes.
I think we're going to pick up with that, because I would like to hear more about how do we invite more white people into this minority fold where they are going to be a part of a group that doesn't necessarily look like them, feel like them. This is foreign to a lot of them. And how do you get comfortable as a white person in these black and brown spaces? So we're at the top of the hour, David. So we'll start there next week. I look forward to you diving into that conversation. So again, I am Tamara Johnson-Shealy. Thank my two trusty co-hosts, Mr. David Slavin and Miss Robbie L. Caban. See you guys next week right here, same time, same channel. Have a good week, everybody.
Take care.